Morning Motivations. It's great to have you with us today. It's been a pleasure with all the back and forth that we've been getting on these broadcasts. We've been on a couple of different television shows of late, so we're getting a lot more comments coming in. I was just on the phone this morning with a minister and a business leader in London, and we were talking about how we could connect on a number of things and how we could become friends, which is pretty cool because in what I do, it takes a lot of people to get things done. We're working on some powerful things in this communist nation south of Florida, and we're also working in the prison system, and I'm working on the business network, and there's a lot of good things going on. But a lot of what we do on a regular basis is about uh, connecting people, people, not only to resources, but connecting people through the way that we think. And it's very powerful because this type of process requires a little bit of training in that we have to walk through uh, some of the ways that we work together. And so that's why I want to talk to you today about what would a miracle look like, because it's a big part of vision casting. It's a big part of understanding that you have to finish before you begin. You have to see the end from the beginning. You kind of have to know where you're going before you start your journey. And so we work a process, and I work this process with people young people who are just getting started out. I work this process with older people who are kind of scaling back, but at the same time, trying to get people out of their past, get their thinking out of the rearview mirror where regret is, where shame might be, where just negative kind of thoughts might be. There could be some positive thoughts there too, but even if they're in the rearview mirror, they're not going to help you too much for where you want to go and what you want to do. So we work a system called the 5 questions, and I got these 5 questions out of a book called Good to Great. But we've been using these things for 15 years, and we've built businesses with it, we've built companies with it, we've built cash flows with it, we've built churches with it, we've built schools with it, we've built ministry programs inside of prisons with it. Uh, so these 5 questions are just key to what we call the common language and getting everybody on the same page so that we can really help each other. Because, we're all called to do great by ourselves. We need each other. We need each other. And so we have to think about that. And so one of the things I do is I try to get these people thinking, and I use these 5 questions. So I'm going to go through them. Number one, what would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? What would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? Number two is, what are your obstacles? What are your obstacles? Number three is, what's your next smallest doable step? Number four is, what are you thankful for? And then number five is, what does a miracle look like? So you'll notice number one and number five are very similar. What would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? And you start to dream a little bigger. What would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? Well, way back in the 90s and even in the 1980s, I began to think about putting together a team of people that would be connected all over the world and that would be able to be friends, be available to each other on a trust basis, to pick up a phone call, to open a door, to point people to resources, point people to talent. So I began to build that. We called that the Provision Network. It's now called the Faith Exchange Network. And we began to build these things. But the miracle looks like having individuals located all over the world that can point people to resources to solve major problems in any area. And this has led to great things going on. But it starts with imagining it. And then once you imagine it, what would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? Then you got to go down to your obstacles. What are your obstacles? Well, your obstacles might be money, your obstacles might be education, your obstacles might be talent, your obstacles might be connections. And so then you start with your next smallest doable step, which is really simple in that you got to think of something small. You make a phone call, you begin to create a friendship, you take a class, you get yourself stronger in a certain area, and then you ask yourself, what are you thankful for? And that whole aspect is uh, powerful because that fourth question is really essential. And that fourth question, what are you thankful for? That's when you kind of look at your current resources. I'm thankful for my health. I'm thankful for my education. I'm thankful for my current network. I'm thankful for uh, you know opportunities that I can freely dream like this, so that I can think through this process. I'm thankful for this process. So you try to get yourself into a thankful place, a happy place, a joyful place, because a thankful, happy, joyful place is a productive place. It's an objective place from which to make decisions. And from there, you begin to visualize the end from the beginning and what would the miracle look like. Okay. Right now, we're working on a major project in Cuba, and I can visualize in the midst of incredible oppression. I can visualize the church community creating uh, an economy, uh, connections, resources for when things really get tough. Right now, we're already, so this is coming back to where am I right now? What am I thankful for? I'm thankful for the 4 churches that we've already established. I'm thankful for the farm that we've built there already that's producing crops that feed 2,000 people a day, that are providing resources so that our leaders are no longer thinking about where they're going to get food, but they're thinking about how they can serve other people. They're not just thinking about themselves now, where they can get food for their babies and for their families and for their parents, but now they're thinking about how do they create this for other people. So that's pretty powerful. And so they begin to move. So I'm thankful for that. So now I start to visualize. I visualize an association of leaders who are all thinking similarly, thinking forward. They're no longer in a survival mode. They're no longer in a selfish mode, but they're in a service oriented growth mode with a growth mindset. They're grateful, they're growing. Then we create lines of communication, which are not that easy because in Cuba there are no, uh, you know, internet isn't that good. There's no real phone system there. So when you have locations that are 3, 4 hours apart by car, then how do you communicate with people? So you create these lines of communication by creating these hotspots and all this stuff so that we can move. But it's not just creating the lines of communications, it's creating a mindset of success, a mindset of victory. So the victory or the miracle is not just buildings, not just a farm that feeds people, but the miracle really is the way of thinking. And that's where this question is so powerful. What would a miracle look like is not just getting something, like what would a miracle look like? My salary doubles. What would a miracle look like? I'd live in a bigger home. What would a miracle look like? A car. What would a miracle look like? No, a miracle would look like your thinking completely begins to change. That you go from impossibility thinking or scarcity thinking to possibility thinking and abundance thinking. You go to an abundance mindset, like every day you wake up in the morning, rather than taking an inventory of how much pain you're in your knees, or I'm an older guy, so I mean, your body talks to you. But every day I think about something good is going to happen today. Something powerful, a piece of news, a resource is going to be revealed to me. A piece of news is going to come to me that's going to be beneficial for everything that I'm working on, beneficial for every individual that I'm working with. Today, I'm going to be speaking with a friend of mine who I've known for a number of years. He's got 3 job opportunities and he needs to he's actually got 3 job offers. And we're going to be having a conversation around which one to choose. And he's calling me because of this teaching, because of this concept of what would a miracle look like. He's not calling me because I'm going to try to talk him out of stuff, or I'm going to warn him about the dangers of this and the dangers of that. I'm going to get him over into the miracle mindset, the abundance mindset, the possibility mindset, so that he makes a decision with the greatest upside. He makes a decision based on expectancies of success rather than fear of failure. And he makes this decision based on not only what's best for him right now, but what's best for him a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and not just for him, but for his mom and everybody that he cares about in his life. And so as we think about this, what would a miracle look like? A miracle is much bigger than meeting just an immediate need. A miracle is about meeting the needs of others. It's about creating solutions. It's about, getting yourself to a place where this becomes who you are. You're no longer running from fire to fire, putting fires out, issue to issue, avoiding pitfalls. But now your mind is on solutions, solutions, solutions. Now we go through the process again, and what would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? What are your obstacles? What are your next smallest doable steps? Now that's gets you started. That's the ramp up to this kind of thinking. And then you get to that next smallest doable step really helps because you want to make good decisions in a row. And most of us have a way of thinking that is easily distracted. So we'll start something and then we're easily distracted. We'll start something and then we're easily distracted. That's why you keep the steps small. That's why you write your steps out so that you put one foot in front of the other and you realize when you're distracted that you're being distracted so that you can get to that thankful place where you're truly inventorying your current resources, right? This is what I have to work with. This is what I have to work with. You go back to your obstacles. This is what I might be missing. This is what I might be missing. All the while having the end in your mind. This is where I'm going. This is the higher purpose. This is the higher purpose. So our higher purpose in Cuba is to create a system of resources in the midst of a market where, in the midst of a place where the government is oppressing them, where they're not bringing them food, where they're not doing this, they don't allow them to really create official kinds of cash flows and businesses. They don't allow it. And so here we are, we're creating a system. So I visualize it. I visualize the locations. I visualize the small businesses. I begin to see what's going on, and then I begin to put one foot in front of the other. So I go all the way to the end, and I see 100 locations. I see teams of businesses around every location. I see all of them being self-sustainable, a profitable farm, profitable entrepreneurial businesses, virtual and actual malls where those business buildings where businesses are lined up next to each other doing commerce. I see improved housing. I see school systems. I see true economy being built in that nation when people are starving right now. The government's turning off the power. We can have our own systems of power. And I begin to just visualize as big as I could possibly visualize. And what's exciting about this is that, it's in a place where everybody almost thinks it can't happen. So this is an experiment for me. And I suggest that you experiment in your life. Experiment, put these principles to work. Just get started and begin. But just know this, it's not something you can do all by yourself. You need to first start with the idea that we win. Now let's get started. Let's play. We're going to be successful. You wouldn't even start this if you didn't think you were going to be successful. And then you go to, we're all called to do something great, but none of us can do it alone. Then you start going to team building. And then there's no such thing as a second-class citizen, because you're going to be tempted to disqualify yourself the first time you hit an obstacle. And when people come to you, you're going to be vetting them from where you are now. You're going to be qualifying or disqualifying them from your experience, and you got to be more open than that. There's no such thing as a second-class citizen. This person may have something to bring that you can't see from your current level of perception. And then you really have to give yourself, number 4, is give yourself to your gift. You really have to develop yourself. You have to get better at writing. You have to get better at communicating. You have to get better at thinking. And so you begin to move that. Okay, but once you start giving yourself to your gift, then what's going to happen is you're going to develop competencies, and you're going to put them on display, and people are going to criticize, and they're going to rain on your parade. They're going to say negative things. Oh, you'll never be able to do that. That's too big a dream. That's a pipe dream. You don't want to be around those people. But on another level, you don't want to be offended. You don't want to be offended. So you have to refuse to be offended. You have to refuse that rejection that you're going to get, because it's coming. So I'm telling you ahead of time. And then the next one is you got to learn how to speak well of other people, because if you're putting it out there where you're critical of everybody else and you're always raining on their dream and their parade, then you're going to begin to surround yourself with nothing but critics and nothing but people who say you can't do anything, and you don't want to do that. And then as you start to move forward on this, other things will be made available to you. So those 6 principles with those 5 questions are the place for you to begin to visualize your miracle. Now, I just speak out over your life right now that miracles are coming to you. Stay connected with us on Morning Motivations. You can come check out some of my other work. So if you Google Dan Stratton, you'll find some of the other work, and you'll start to see that there is something called the miracle mindset, the abundance mindset, the possibility mindset. And then you'll want to be involved with teams that think like this, because it's really hard to win. It's really hard to be successful with people who don't think they can win or be successful. And right there is really the miracle. When you start thinking that you can win, when you start thinking each and every day that something good is going to happen that day. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you're listening in today, and I'm grateful that you want to bless others and be a blessing. So thanks for tuning in to Morning Motivations. I'll be on live again next week. Lots of good things happening. Reach out to us, ask your questions. If you want to get my books, you can do that. Just communicate with us. I have a book called Very Few Fathers. I have a book called My Deeper Life, which is powerful. We Win, Let's Play is another book. Just reach out, because all of this is about moving yourself towards a growth mindset, an abundance mindset, a miracle mindset. Have an awesome day. God bless you. I love you. You're awesome.